Imagine waking up on a sun-kissed beach, coffee in hand, feeling the salty breeze, and knowing you've already earned the freedom to live on your own terms. Yet the bank statement in your pocket tells a different story. What if I told you that after 5 years of diligent saving, you're actually farther from financial independence than you think? Do you ever feel like you're sprinting on a treadmill working harder, but never getting closer to that fire dream? In the next 14 minutes, I'll expose the 3 biggest traps that silently sabotage your plan and give you the exact steps to dodge them. Stay tuned, your future self will thank you. Financial independence, retire early, or FIRE for short, isn't just a catchy hashtag. It's a concrete goal. Accumulating enough assets so that the returns can cover your living expenses without you having to trade time for money. It's about designing a life where you choose how to spend each day, not being forced by a paycheck. I once talked to a viewer who proudly announced that she was on track to retire at 35, only to discover a hidden mistake that added 5 more years to her timeline. That moment of realization was both shocking and liberating, because once she knew the flaw, she could fix it and get back on the fast track. Today, you'll walk away with a clear checklist, a realistic timeline, and the confidence to stay on course. Let's start by uncovering the first mistake most people make because you can't fix what you don't know. The first mistake is not having a concrete, quantified goal. FIRE is a target, not a vague feeling. Without a specific number, you can't measure progress, and you end up drifting. A common symptom is saying, "I want to retire early," without attaching a dollar amount or a date. The solution is simple but powerful. First, calculate your true annual expenses. Look at every recurring cost, rent or mortgage, utilities, groceries, transportation, insurance, entertainment, and be honest about what you actually need to live comfortably. Next, multiply that figure by 25, which is the rule of thumb based on a 4% safe withdrawal rate. Finally, add a buffer of 5 to 10% to protect against market volatility and unexpected costs. Write that exact number on a sticky note and place it where you'll see it every day. Let me give you a real-world example. Maria thought she needed $1 million to retire, but after a proper audit of her expenses, she realized she could live comfortably on $750,000. That realization shaved 3 years off her plan and gave her the confidence to accelerate her savings. Tools like a simple spreadsheet, a free FIRE calculator app, or even a Google Sheet template can make this process painless. The key is to treat the number as a non-negotiable target, not a wish. Now, on to the second mistake. Lifestyle inflation, also known as creep. As your income rises, it's natural to want to upgrade your lifestyle, a nicer apartment, a fancier car, more vacations. The danger is that those upgrades often happen automatically, without you even noticing the impact on your savings rate. Even a 5% annual increase in spending can add 7 to 10 years to your timeline. The first step to combat this is to set a fixed savings rate, say 50% of every raise, and treat any extra income as a boost, not a reason to spend more. Create a spend-only budget that caps discretionary expenses at a set percentage of your income, and stick to it. When a raise arrives, allocate the extra dollars to your investment accounts before you even think about a new gadget. Automate the transfers so the money moves before you have a chance to spend it. Another powerful habit is the no-spend month, where you deliberately avoid any non-essential purchases for 30 days. This reset helps you see how much you were really spending on things that don't move the needle toward independence. A friend of mine, Alex, got a promotion that added $10,000 to his annual salary. Instead of celebrating with a new sports car, he increased his retirement contributions by 15% and set aside the rest for a travel fund that he would use only after reaching his FIRE number. By the end of the year, his net worth grew by an extra $20,000, shaving almost 2 years off his projected retirement date. What do you think? Have you ever noticed your spending creeping up after a raise? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to hear your perspective. The third mistake, which we'll dive into next, is overlooking the power of tax-efficient investing. But before we get there, remember that the first 2 traps, failing to set a concrete target and letting lifestyle creep eat your gains, are the most common reasons people feel stuck. By quantifying your goal and protecting your savings rate, you lay a solid foundation for the rest of your FIRE journey. If this is blowing your mind and you're ready to keep digging deeper, hit that subscribe button and let's keep exploring together. In the next segment, We'll uncover how tax-inefficient choices can silently drain your portfolio, and what simple strategies can keep more of your hard-earned money working for you. Stay with me, because the best part is still ahead. When we talk about tax-efficient investing, the first thing to understand is that the government doesn't just take a flat slice of your paycheck. It can also nibble away at the growth of your investments over time. Imagine you have a garden where you're planting seeds that could become a forest. If a portion of each seed is constantly being taken before it even sprouts, the forest will never reach the size you imagined. That's exactly what happens when you ignore the tax implications of where you park your money. One of the most common ways people lose money without even realizing it is by holding their retirement savings in accounts that are taxed every single-handedly. For example, a traditional brokerage account will subject you to capital gains tax each time you sell a winning position, and dividend tax on any cash payouts you receive. Those taxes are taken out of the pocket that could have been reinvested, compounding your returns over the years. Even a modest annual tax drag of 3% can shave off several years from your FIRE timeline, especially when you're counting on the power of compound interest to do the heavy lifting. So how do you protect yourself? The first step is to understand the three main tax-advantaged account types that most investors have at their disposal: the employer-sponsored retirement plan, the individual retirement account, and the health savings account. Each of these has its own set of rules about contributions, withdrawals, and the tax treatment of earnings. By funneling as much of your savings as possible into the accounts that either defer taxes until you're in a lower bracket or, even better, let you withdraw earnings tax-free, you can keep more of your money working for you. Let's break down a simple strategy that anyone can apply. Start by maxing out the contribution limit of your employer-sponsored plan, especially if your employer offers a matching contribution. That match is essentially free money, and you don't want to leave it on the table. Next, if you have earned income, consider contributing to an individual retirement account. Depending on your income level, you can choose between a traditional version, which gives you a tax deduction today, or a Roth version, which lets you withdraw earnings tax-free in retirement. The key is to look at your current tax bracket versus the bracket you expect to be in when you finally retire. If you think you'll be in a higher bracket later, the Roth route often makes more sense. Another powerful tool is the health savings account, which is triple tax advantaged. Contributions are tax deductible, the money grows tax-free, and withdrawals for qualified medical expenses are also tax-free. Even if you don't anticipate huge medical costs, the ability to let that money compound without any tax drag can be a hidden accelerator toward your FIRE goal. Now, let's talk about the concept of tax loss harvesting. This is a technique where you intentionally sell investments that have declined in value to realize a loss, which can then be used to offset capital gains elsewhere in your portfolio. The net effect is that you reduce the amount of tax you owe on your gains, freeing up more capital to reinvest. It sounds a bit like a financial gymnastics routine, but the principle is simple. You're turning a losing position into a tax advantage. The only thing you need to watch out for is the wash sale rule, which prevents you from buying a substantially identical security within a 30-day window after the sale. By planning your trades carefully, you can keep the tax drag low and let your portfolio grow more efficiently. A real-world illustration might help. Imagine a friend of mine, Jenna, who had a portfolio of tech stocks that had surged dramatically over a few years. She was thrilled with the gains, but when she decided to rebalance and sell a portion of those holdings, she was hit with a sizable capital gains tax bill. After learning about tax loss harvesting, she identified a handful of underperforming positions in a different sector, sold them at a loss, and used those losses to offset the gains from the tech stocks. The net tax she paid was dramatically lower, and the extra cash stayed in her investment account, compounding for the years ahead. That simple adjustment shaved almost a year off her projected FIRE timeline. If you've ever felt that the tax man is a silent thief, you're not alone. Drop a comment below and tell me about a time you discovered a tax surprise that set you back. I love hearing those stories because they remind us all that the path to financial independence is as much about smart strategy as it is about discipline. Now that we've tackled the tax side of things, let's move on to the next big mistake that can quietly sabotage your progress: ignoring the impact of investment fees. It's easy to think that a few basis points here and there won't matter, but over the course of a decade or two, those tiny percentages compound into a substantial chunk of your portfolio. Think of it like a tiny leak in a boat. If you ignore it, the water will eventually fill the hull. The first place to look is the expense ratio of the funds you hold. Index funds and exchange-traded funds typically have lower expense ratios than actively managed funds, but even within the index world there can be a wide range. A fund with an expense ratio of 0.1% versus 1.5% may not look like a huge difference on paper, but when you apply that to a growing balance, the difference becomes massive. For example, on a portfolio that eventually reaches $1 million, a 1.5% expense ratio would cost you $15,000 per year, while a 0.1% expense ratio would only cost $100. That extra $14,000 could be reinvested and, thanks to compounding, could generate a sizable boost to your net worth over time. Another hidden cost is the trading commission. While many brokerages now offer commission-free trades, some still charge per trade fees, especially for certain types of orders or for trading foreign securities. If you're a frequent trader, those fees can add up quickly. The simplest way to keep them low is to adopt a buy-and-hold strategy, focusing on a core set of diversified, low-cost index funds and only making occasional adjustments when your life circumstances change. Bid-ask spreads are another subtle fee that many investors overlook. When you buy a stock, you typically pay the ask price, and when you sell, you receive the bid price. The difference between those two prices is the spread, and it represents a cost to you. For highly liquid stocks and large-cap index funds, the spread is usually negligible, but for smaller, less liquid assets, it can be more pronounced. If you're considering niche or emerging market funds, be sure to check the average spread and factor that into your decision. Let's bring this to life with a story. My cousin, Marco, was an avid investor who loved to chase the latest hot sector. He would buy and sell small-cap biotech stocks every few weeks, hoping to capture quick gains. While he did see some impressive short-term returns, the constant trading fees and wide bid-ask spreads ate away at his profits. Over a period of 3 years, he realized that his net portfolio growth was actually lower than a friend who had taken a more passive approach with a low-cost total market index fund. When Marco finally switched to a passive strategy, his portfolio's growth rate accelerated, and he was able to increase his monthly savings rate without feeling like he was sacrificing potential upside. If you've ever been tempted to chase the next big thing, think about the hidden costs that come with that excitement. Share your experience in the comments. Have you ever calculated how much you're paying in fees versus what you could be earning if you kept the costs low? Now that we've covered taxes and fees, let's turn to another subtle but powerful mistake: neglecting the importance of an emergency fund. Many people assume that as long as they're investing aggressively, they'll be fine. But life has a way of throwing curveballs. A sudden car repair, a medical bill, or a period of unemployment can force you to dip into your investment accounts at the worst possible time, potentially locking in losses or triggering early withdrawal penalties. The rule of thumb is to keep 3 to 6 months' worth of living expenses in a highly liquid, low-risk account, such as a high-yield savings account or a money market fund. This buffer gives you the flexibility to stay the course with your long-term investments even when short-term cash needs arise. Think of it as a safety net that lets you keep your retirement accounts untouched, preserving the tax advantages and the compounding effect that are essential to reaching FIRE. A personal anecdote. A few years ago, a friend of mine, Priya, lost her job unexpectedly. Because she had a solid emergency fund, she was able to cover her rent, utilities, and groceries without touching her retirement accounts. She used the time to upskill, landed a new position with a higher salary, and continued contributing to her retirement accounts at an even higher rate. Had she not had that safety net, she would have been forced to sell investments at a low point, potentially derailing her FIRE timeline by several years. If you're not sure whether you have enough of a cushion, take a moment right now to calculate your monthly essential expenses: rent or mortgage, utilities, groceries, transportation, and any debt payments. Multiply that number by the number of months you feel comfortable with, and then compare it to the balance you have in your most accessible accounts. If there's a shortfall, start building that fund gradually by directing a small portion of each paycheck into a dedicated savings account. The peace of mind you gain is worth every dollar saved. Now let's address a mistake that often flies under the radar: failing to adjust your plan as life changes. Many people set a fire target in their 20s and then assume it will stay relevant forever. But as you age, your priorities shift, your risk tolerance evolves, and your income may fluctuate. Sticking rigidly to a plan that no longer reflects your reality can lead to frustration and burnout. The key is to schedule regular check-ins with yourself, perhaps every 6 months or once a year, to review your progress, reassess your expenses, and adjust your savings rate if needed. If you receive a raise, consider increasing your contribution percentage rather than simply inflating your lifestyle. If you experience a major life event, such as a marriage, a child, or a move to a higher cost area, recalculate your fire number to reflect the new reality. This dynamic approach keeps you aligned with your goals and prevents the feeling of being stuck in a plan that no longer serves you. A quick example. I once worked with a client, Sam, who had a clear fire target at age 35. He was on track until he decided to buy a larger house for his growing family. Instead of revisiting his numbers, he kept his original savings rate, which meant he had to cut back on other essential expenses, leading to stress and a feeling of deprivation. When we sat down and recalculated his target based on his new housing costs, we discovered that extending his retirement age by a couple of years would give him the flexibility he needed without sacrificing his quality of life. He adjusted his timeline, and the stress evaporated. He now enjoys a balanced life while still moving steadily toward financial independence. If you've ever felt that your original plan feels out of sync with where you are now, let me know in the comments. I love hearing how people adapt their strategies as life unfolds. We've now covered 4 major pitfalls: lacking a concrete, quantified goal, letting lifestyle inflation erode your savings, ignoring tax-efficient strategies, and overlooking fees, emergency buffers, and the need for ongoing plan adjustments. Each of these mistakes can add years to your journey, but the good news is that they're all within your control. By taking deliberate, incremental actions, you can shave those years off and move closer to the freedom you crave.